Welcome back to my channel. This time around we have the usual stories about glitches and other strange stories. There are also a lot of theories and statements trying to explain the strange phenomenon experience in all the stories on this channel. Leave a comment and share your opinion, or send your stories to storyscary152@gmail.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when new videos are uploaded. I'm SquidSeeg59 on Reddit. Photo theory and other musings. To preface this, I'm in no way trying to debunk the Mandela effect. I 100% believe there is some really weird stuff going on. This is just food for thought. So I went down the fruit of the loom rabbit hole again today. After reading a posting on this sub from a few weeks ago, I got on newspaper.com to see if I could find anything. I didn't find anything that already hasn't been posted at one time or the other. There was one article from 1994 saying that the image had changed from a stuffed full cornucopia to a few guys dressed up as fruit. I think that commercial was from the 90s. So I'm thinking about this for a while. After pondering, I remembered something I'd read about several years ago. Neurolinguistic programming. According to the theory, NLP can help change behaviors, thoughts, and actions. You keep repeating the same thought over and over in order to manifest changes. I think, therefore I do. For generations, fruit of the loom has existed. So when you read, write, or say fruit of the loom, an image of fruit in a cornucopia is generated in your mind. This goes on for years. Then one day somebody says hole up here. There is no cornucopia on the label, but you remember it differently because this has been programmed into your head for years. One other thought, different spellings. Most common on this sub and the Mandela effects sub are probably Fruit Loops and Kit Kat, along with a couple of others. Some people did a study a few years ago about how the brain is wired and how it interprets information. So one thing they did was put out a paragraph, several sentences long. For every word, the first letter was correct, the last letter was correct, and the rest of the letters were scrambled. I read the test and got to the bottom, and it said to read it again. But when I look at the spelling, son of a gun, every word was misspelled. The theory is that our brains basically scan over words and even images. So in a nutshell, people could be reading words or looking at images, but never really read the words or pay much attention to the image. It's a box of cereal or a candy bar, nothing out of the ordinary. Then one day somebody has an epiphany or a sense of clarity. They post about it, and then you have a whole bunch of other people second-guessing their memories. Was it Fruit Loops or Fruit Loops? Like I said at the top, not trying to debunk Mandela effects. I've got a few that I'll die at the top of the hill to defend. I'm dandelions_at_dusk on Reddit. You will get judged by others, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is what you feel about it when you are alone in the middle of the night. I would strongly caution you to think about what others here have said regarding the energetic effects, though. Even though there would be no physical touching, as a spiritual person, you understand that we don't need to touch each other physically to affect each other's energy. Pretending to have sex or perform sexual acts with someone over the internet is energetically no different from actually having sex with them in person. And as other people said, sex is absolutely the most intimate, sacred, and vulnerable energetic exchange possible between two humans. You will be allowing that energy into your field, whether you are actively on screen or people are just viewing photos or older video material, since time also has no meaning energetically. Ultimately, the choice is yours, and do not let anyone make you feel shame around this. Wrong and right do not have a place here. Only healthy or unhealthy, and in my opinion, nakedness and sex work in exchange for money in the way it is done in this present day is not healthy and certainly not empowering. That's deeply unpopular, I know, but religion and the patriarchy have done an excellent job of convincing us women that all we are good for is our bodies, and that is the real shame. Just understand what you are truly letting yourself in for and make the best choice for yourself that you can. Best wishes to you. I'm both Tower 3689. I have always seen strings, lights, and waves connecting the world. I've never been able to get it to stop. I'm just wondering if anyone else experiences this. From the time I was as young as I can remember, I thought that everyone could see the matter. Like the literal stuff that makes up the world, I can see waves connecting and erupting from people and objects. They change and swell, they act completely on their own. The only reason I discovered not everyone sees these was due to a conversation with a friend when I was very young. I said something like, "You can see the energy coming off that tree. It's dying," and they looked at me like I was an alien. We had similar conversations over the years until they sat me down and told me, humans actually can't see energy or matter. It's impossible. I can immediately tell when I'm in the presence of a spirit or entity because I can literally see the energy. When it's non-human, it can be disorienting. It is distinctly different or otherworldly. Sometimes it hurts me to look at it for too long. I promise I'm not crazy. I can tell instantly if an object has been bewitched or haunted because I can literally see the energy pooling around it. I can tell when I'm in the presence of another witch or practitioner, unless they're cloaking their energy extremely well, because I can see, and sometimes read, the protective spells they wear on their jewelry. I can see the vibes that crystals give off, and I can tell when a crystal is fake or dead because of the lack of vibes. The only energy I have a hard time seeing is my own. Different elements have different energy forms. Water is static, fuzzy, and constantly active. Fire is like an orb. The air is constantly flowing in waves, and the earth has a low hum and very staticky energy. Every object gives off a different vibe, whether natural or supernatural, and some give off none. Sometimes I can tell the exact path someone is going to take. If you've ever seen the movie Donnie Darko, it's kinda like that. I'll see a stream of energy that I recognize as belonging to my roommate leave their room and go into the kitchen, to the bookshelf, and then back into their room. 2 minutes later, that person will take that exact same path. This usually synchronizes with more than one person at once. I'll see the paths a given few people, it's never been more than 3, will take at the same time, like those select movements are like destined. It's almost always exactly 2 minutes later that they will take that exact path. I saw my friend's energy come in through the door 2 minutes before she did. This happens more occasionally, and it's one of the things that freaks me out every time it happens. The last time it happened was a couple of months ago. Thought it was worth mentioning. I can sometimes tell exactly what someone is going to say before they commit to forming a sentence, as they've already said it to me in my head. This one also makes me uneasy, sometimes because I form a response and end up interrupting them with my answer as they're asking me the question. I have done this both ways and put the seed of a thought into someone else's head. It has to be someone I'm very close with, or else it's kind of like driving a golf cart into a brick wall. This also really hurts to do. I used to think I could see people's auras, which I'm sure I still could, but I'm not as good at it anymore as I was as a kid. If I let my mind go dumb enough, I can see the waves in the air constantly flowing like a river. They move around people I've learned, so I learned to read them when I was like 10. Sometimes I can literally tell when someone is coming or if someone is behind me based on the displacement of these waves. Like someone wafting through a lake. This is also how I've learned to detect spirits. Like people, these waves form around, not through, ghosts and spirits. This ability makes me partially able to navigate the world in the dark or with my eyes closed. There is always a constant fabric that is in the air. I need to know if anyone else experiences this because it's starting to affect my health. I suffer from extreme chronic migraines, and I wonder if this contributes. Like if my third eye or something is wide open, and I'm constantly being blasted with every single vibe. I can feel the energy get trapped in my head sometimes, and it feels like it heats up my brain. I tried looking straight at what I assumed to be a shadow person once for more than 5 minutes. It felt like the energy was burning a hole in my brain. Does that make sense? If this is a psychic ability, how do I turn it off or learn to control it so I can take a break? Are there ways I can protect myself from not deep frying my brains? I know a lot of you are skeptics, so I'll respect the possibility that I'm just batshit insane. I'm going to add a little disclaimer. I know that a lot of you are going to tell me to see a doctor, both for physical and mental illness. This is a great suggestion, and I definitely have and will be. I have been seeing therapists and medical doctors since I was 12 because of how bad the migraines got. I suffer from peripheral neuropathy and am currently receiving care for that. I have been screened multiple times for psychosis and other sensory processing disorders because my brother has schizophrenia, and they wanted to make sure I didn't have it as well. I've been turned away from many doctors who believe I am perfectly healthy and normal. I do not possess any symptoms of a psychotic disorder or a personality disorder besides the things you have read in this post. The only negative symptom of these abilities is the constant mental strain. As for the migraines and neuropathy, my doctors are still coming up blank. I've been tested for the usual things: diabetes, TMJ, blood or nutritional deficiencies, autoimmune disorders, etc., and I have had multiple MRIs. I am not above a completely mundane medical explanation, but I have been going down this road for years, and I'm trying to evaluate if there are any other, maybe spiritual, explanations for this. When I'm tired or depressed, this ability is almost completely regressed. When I am calm and alert, I can see the energy as clearly as one could see fire. These energy waves, or whatever that I experience, are as real and constant as any other state of matter. Hence why I thought everyone could see them as a kid. I can feel them slide across my skin, heat the tips of my fingers, radiate, fade, dim, oscillate, swell, and die like fire. What do I make of this? I worry this makes me vulnerable in some way sometimes. Any help or advice is much appreciated. I've heard a lot of people say they experienced this as a kid and lost it as they grew up. What about them changes that let them step away from it? How would someone do that manually? I'm EverydayAwakening on Reddit. Finally, a clear path. I feel as though I finally have a sense of what I should be doing with myself in this incarnation. It's a question I've been asking myself for years, trying to feel it out, trying to listen to guidance from beyond the veil. As all things happen as they're supposed to, I suppose I wasn't ready to see this path until recently, though when replaying scenes from my life, it seems obvious. I even had a similar insight as an adolescent, but life took me in another direction, and I thought the door was closed on that path. Now I suspect that I needed to unravel a certain amount of shadow before I could be ready to walk what will certainly be a difficult road. Relatively recently, I realized my personal gift was to see the patterns we all exist in, myself included, which has helped change my own from those of stagnation to those of balance. Unfortunately, when I tried to share these insights with others regarding their patterns, I was met with nothing but resistance. I asked myself, how could others not want to better themselves? Why wouldn't they zoom out with me and see the bird's eye view? It was as if I had lived my whole life seeing only 2 dimensions, and suddenly I became aware of a third. Looking down, I could see others walking into the same wall over and over, but from their perspectives, without depth, their actions seemed natural. How can one help another that has no desire to change, let alone observe their own actions and motivations? The short answer is that you can't. Attempting to only creates resentment and conflict. One has to discover these things for themselves, repeating the same mistakes over and over again until insight happens in its own time. To interfere in that process without invitation is to impede another's free will. So how was I to live with this depth of vision that only seemed to cause conflict? Remaining silent caused me suffering, as watching others harm themselves is difficult for me, but speaking out caused others harm. The obvious choice was silence. Better to suffer than cause suffering in others. But what a useless gift I'd chosen for myself. And then, through motivation seemingly unrelated to this process of discovery, I realized I might make a fine doctor. Compassion, a desire to serve others, and a curiosity about the inner workings of these marvelous meat machines we all drive lead me to strongly consider it as a potential path. As I started that contemplation, I began to notice synchronicities occurring with more frequency, as if I were a dog being led by a trail of treats. Interests collided, a step-by-step plan emerged, and the first of several of these steps were completed. The greatest insight that brought me to psychiatry was when I realized that I might be able to use my ability to see patterns in others who wanted help seeing those patterns so they could modify them. Finally, the potential for a willing participant, a seeker of self-betterment, a being of free will asking for assistance in a way that comes naturally to me. I understand the path to acceptance by any medical school is difficult, as is residency, and not all of psychiatry is what I described above. But the more I research, the more I realize that there are emerging methodologies in the field that have the potential to change the way we treat depression, addiction, and a host of other disorders. Ketamine today will be psilocybin tomorrow, which may be DMT next week. Simply seeing a potential path to helping others in a venue I'm sure I'm suited for is exciting. Unfortunately, the ship of life cannot turn on a dime, and the preparation to begin is a difficult path by itself. Still, the successes I've had recently, the synchronicities, and the warm glow of faith it's left me with, all combine to make me feel as if I finally found something to occupy my time that's worth doing. I have several decades of life left, and even though the natural world is decaying at incredible speed and society is caught in the churn, I have to have faith that even if I don't have time to get to the end, simply walking the path will be enough. And so, like a leaf in the wind, I'd fall, hoping to be lifted, but accepting any outcome as part of a plan I cannot comprehend, nor do I need to. I'm LilPluto_444 on Reddit. Last night, I astral projected for the first time, and it was an indescribably positive experience. I used all of the proper protection: rosemary salt, black tourmaline, and cedar incense, so I felt very safe. Throughout today, all of my manifestations have been coming through, and I have been faced with quite incredible luck, until my last class of the day. A school inspector came in and sat at the back of the class, and immediately I felt the air in the room shift. He was very pale and had completely white skin and hair. It was as if he was black, white, and gray. I kept forgetting he was in the room throughout the class, and it was really off-putting. You know how when you're in the room with other people, even in a wide open space, and you're aware of the energy of those people. You can sense them, even if you're not spiritually in touch in the slightest. It was as if he wasn't there, no energy, like some void where he was sitting. All day I had been seeing auras with particular clarity and vibrancy. He seemed not to have one. The second I started thinking these things about him, that there was something really off, he started staring into the back of my head. My head started burning, right where I would assume my third eye to be, and he stood up, came by my desk, and just looked at me, not at my work. He didn't say a word, and then he sat back down behind me and kept staring at bullets. I went to the bathroom to kind of collect myself. I don't know. Maybe because my head was hurting, maybe because I wanted to rip my vape. Not sure. But when I came back, he was gone. There was something seriously off about him. I live in the Cayman Islands, so I'm quite sure he wasn't a skinwalker of any kind. Maybe he was just a weird guy with bad energy. What does the community think? I'm not a paranoid person, but I think that something that weird happening the day after I put myself in the vulnerable state of astral projection is definitely a little strange. Should I be carrying a black tourmaline in my bra or something tomorrow? He'll be here all week for school inspections. Blessed be. I'm Jack__Valentine on Reddit. Robert Downey Jr. was the voice of Tony Stark in What If. So I saw a conversation on an Instagram comment section where somebody said that Tony Stark should appear as an AI consciousness in the upcoming Disney Plus series Ironheart, and somebody responded to them that the Disney Plus shows probably didn't have the budget to afford Robert Downey Jr. I responded very confidently that RDJ already voiced Tony in the Disney Plus series What If, and he informed me that someone else, Mike Wingert, was the voice of Tony in that. I googled it and he's right, but I swear it was RDJ. In fact, I very clearly remember media journalists making a big deal of it with clickbait articles, like Robert Downey Jr. to return as Iron Man in upcoming Disney Plus series, to make everyone think he'd be coming back in one of the real MCU projects. I also remember watching the show and thinking the voice sounded just like him, but I watched a couple of scenes on YouTube just now. And now his voice sounds weird and different, something I didn't think before. I'm souprdog on Reddit. Let me start off by saying I'm not a hardcore believer in the simulation theory, but something has to explain this. I was about 18, 19 years old living with my mom. We built a full apartment in the basement for me to live in. I was sleeping on my fold-out couch, and all of a sudden I woke up. It had to have been around midnight. I had a strange urge to just drive. I get in my car, 1992 Honda Prelude, and start driving, but it didn't feel like me driving. It felt more like a dream. I remember looking down at the dash and seeing 120 miles per hour, then all of a sudden I exited the highway. Halfway up the ramp, I hit the concrete barrier almost parallel. I remember the 2-ton jack I had in the trunk comes flying out and hitting the windshield. I don't remember getting out of the car or walking about 2 to 3 miles home. I wake up without a scratch down the street with my keys in my hands, then see the police with their lights on at my mom's house. They never knocked on my mom's door. They were just waiting for me. They told me people saw me walking away from the scene. They gave me a breathalyzer. I blew 000. They gave me a ticket and left. I've never talked to my mom about what happened. I don't think she knows or remembers, and that's really weird because she always brings up the past. I don't know or remember what happened to my car. I'm AnimatedMajor on Reddit. The Odd Highway Glitch. So this story is about 20 years old now. I'm 40. I was 20 at the time. I remember it very clearly, as does my mother. We were on a trip from Utah to California, passing into San Diego. The trip has an overpass that we pass under, and we have made that trip 1,000 times over the course of my life. We always use that overpass to signify the start or end of the trip, depending on which way we are going. So this trip had been grueling. We had a lot of car trouble and had been harassed by the California border because they caught us with ferrets once a few years earlier, so they regularly demanded to search our car in case we were smuggling wild animals. With that in mind, we were ready to get home. It was hitting sunset as we approached the city. We passed under the landmark overpass, and my mom sighed and said, "We're home." I cheered, and we went back to listening to music. It usually took about 45 minutes from the overpass to get to our doorstep. After roughly half an hour of driving, we both started getting confused. We were passing under freeways that we wouldn't normally pass under. I started looking around to see if we had missed something when my mom said, "What is that?" And I saw something to this day that makes my head dizzy when I think too hard about it. The buildings around us were crumbling, and the freeways over us had vines and stuff hanging from them. I audibly gasped, and my mom just started saying, "What the F? What the F? What the F?" Then it was dark, and we were on the freeway, and we were passing under the overpass, except we were going the wrong way, heading out of the city instead of coming in. My mom freaked out, pulled over, and started freaking out. I couldn't even think clearly. We were both just unable to cope with what we had seen, or where we were. We realized we were missing a couple of hours, and we eventually just said it was a shared hallucination, and she had been driving in a daze because of the long day. To this day, we both cannot explain what we saw, or justify how we ended up on the freeway heading out of the city. I recently brought it up to my mother, and she got really quiet and said she remembered, told me what she remembered which matched my memories, and wouldn't talk about it further. She refused to speculate or discuss it any further than the cold, hard fact of this happened. This is what happened. That's it. That was probably the craziest glitch I've ever seen. I just thought I'd share. Take it as you will, or don't, it doesn't matter to me. I'm stars_and_figs on Reddit. A third person in our selfie that shouldn't have been there, but not like a ghost. So this happened when I was still in high school, around 15 years ago. It was summer break, and I was visiting my grandma. I went to visit one of my friends who lived in the apartment above my grandma's. We were messing around on her computer, eating snacks, and just hanging out in her room. No alcohol or drugs were involved. We decided to take selfies, as teens do. She took out her flip phone. Flip phones were still a thing back then. They didn't really have filters. This was a flip phone with a shitty camera. I can't remember the make or brand. We snapped a few selfies, but couldn't get one we liked, so kept deleting them and taking more. Now, bear in mind, we were in her room, alone. There was nobody else in that room. Then, at one point, we took a selfie, and there was a very clear image of a person behind us on the selfie. But the person was not like a creepy silhouette or orb or ghostly figure. The best way I can describe it was like a separate photo of an unknown person was superimposed onto our selfie. This person had dark hair and a beard and was smiling widely. He was wearing a suit. He was clear as day on our image. We freaked out. I told her to delete it. She did. It genuinely looked like a glitch of some sort because the image was so clear. Still to this day, I think of this sometimes. It is the only time in my life I've had an experience that I just can't explain away. Did anyone experience anything similar or have any clue what it might have been? Sorry, I don't have the photo. We both freaked when we saw it, and it was promptly deleted. Again, it didn't look ghostly or anything, just like a third person had been superimposed onto our image. I'm fuziz on Reddit. This was around 6 years ago, when I was a senior in high school. It was after school, and I went to go make mozzarella sticks in the kitchen when I saw my brother, a junior in high school, sitting on the couch in a white hoodie that he always wears and light blue jeans. I asked him if he wanted some, and he totally ignored me. I couldn't see his face, but he was typing away at his computer and sitting slouched as he always did. I yelled at him to stop ignoring me and to just answer me. No response, and I was like, F it, your loss. After putting the mozzarella sticks in, I passed the living room to see him, but he wasn't there anymore, and I didn't think much of it. Later on, when I'm sitting with my mom in the living room, he comes through the front door wearing red and black flannel and dark blue jeans. I asked him why he changed his clothes. He was like, "What do you mean?" "I've been wearing this all day." I said that when I'd asked him for mozzarella sticks earlier, he was wearing white. He looked at me like I'm stupid and said, "I just came home from theater practice. I've been at school all day." I stared at him and asked if he was being honest, but then my mom backed him up. I was like, "Oh, I'm just being stupid." But I was just deeply thinking because I know I didn't hallucinate him. I wasn't on any medication or anything. This memory hasn't left my mind and still makes me think about it too often. And FastFeet87 comment. Something similar happened to me, also in high school. Granted, this was under the influence of weed, so take it for what it's worth. Got incredibly stoned at a party and left early because I was uncomfortable. I was never a big stoner, just liked to dabble, and got way too high. A friend drives me home, and I go upstairs to my room to try and go to sleep. My parents were downstairs in the kitchen. I was extremely thirsty, so I went downstairs to get a glass of water, hoping to have minimal contact with my parents. As I walk past their bedroom, however, I glance out of the corner of my eye, and there they are in their beds watching TV. I thought that was odd because I just saw them in the kitchen. I sit at the top of the stairs for a second contemplating just how high I must be. As I began to walk downstairs into the kitchen, though, I kid you not, they were sitting at the kitchen table having coffee and chatting. So bizarre. I tried several hallucinogens over the years and have been very high on THC before, and I have never experienced a kind of hallucination as seeing two solid people like that. Usually, it's just textured on walls morph, seeing lots of patterns on things, colors are brighter, etc. And to this day, I've never had another experience that comes close to that. And Spattenberg comment follows. Both these stories are wild. I have a theory about what might be happening in this sort of instance, where a person sees something or someone that couldn't have physically been there. Looking at the idea that time is not linear, but as humans, we only have the capacity to experience it that way, means that all things are happening at once. Perhaps a glitch, such as these two examples, is your brain briefly firing in such a way that you see through time, but can't interact with what you see. That's why the original poster's brother didn't react, and that's why your parents didn't notice you passing their room. I think this could account for a lot of ghost sightings as well. Also, being high under the right circumstances may have primed your brain to bypass its normal buffers. Sometimes I wonder if we are frequently seen through time, but don't realize it because nothing appears out of the ordinary. This user on Reddit wants to be anonymous on YouTube, and this is the glitch. Now I'm sure we're living in a simulation and NPC was duplicated. So yesterday, I cycled back home from work, like I do whenever I'm working, but when I got to my street, I saw someone parking his car, a white Hyundai i25, and the driver was a man with a blue shirt. I didn't really think about it until 3 seconds later, when I saw the same car parking at the same time, with the same men with the same blue shirt inside, with just 2 cars between one another. I slowed down a little bit to make sure I wasn't imagining it, and I was not. It was there, and they both parked at the same time, tried to get into the parking space at the wrong angle, and tried again, successfully, again, the exact same time, exact same car, exact same person. Unfortunately, I haven't seen the license plate, but I swear everything was identical. I have no idea if the devs are lazy, if we get signs that we need to get out somehow, or if it's a feature in the simulation that we have consciousness. Either way, I'm terrified. I'm KyleaPrewett on Reddit. Okay, so this was back in 2012 when I worked at an assisted living home as a caregiver on the overnight shift. Some pretty crazy things happened, but this one still gets to me and makes me wonder. I worked from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. 5 days a week. Generally, at the start of the shift, we do rounds and then start cleaning. Our shift was responsible for cleaning the kitchen and dining room and taking out the trash, as well as doing laundry. Around 2 a.m., we were usually done cleaning and would have time to sit down between folding laundry and doing rounds. My coworker and I got along pretty well, so we'd usually sit in the main living area and talk. One night, just like most others, we found ourselves sitting there talking. I don't remember what we were talking about, but suddenly there was this extremely loud crashing noise that sounded like a ton of glass breaking. My coworker and I froze and stared at each other for a second before we jumped up to investigate. There was a couple in a room nearby us that had a huge china cabinet that took up most of their living space, so we hightailed it to that room. It was still standing. After that, we had no idea what else the noise could have been, so we checked every single room in the building. Nothing outside, nothing. Everyone was sleeping. It was as if it never happened. Jessirazo comment on a post about reincarnation. Do you think we choose our parents? Maybe what we choose is a path or purpose, and everything else is just part of it. What would really matter then will be coming into the world. Everything else is extra baggage. I've been thinking about reincarnation for a while, but I still have little to no knowledge or understanding of it, only stories, and now those stories are foggy. Supposedly, my eldest brother is the incarnation of my dad's dad. My older sister is my mother's mother, and my cousin is my mom's dad. You can tell this by a sign or mark on the child or by divination. Why would anyone reincarnate? What is it that can drive a man that far? Is it materialistic? Is it divine? It must be divine to make sense. My grandfather, whom my brother is said to be reincarnated, died when he fell from a palm wine tree. He was never supposed to fall, so murder was the case. The mark on his head from the fall is a mark my brother has. Now, this is where reincarnation gets interesting and confusing. Why did my grandfather come back? I forgot to add my brother is the firstborn in our family, and my dad is the firstborn in his family. To avenge his death, one can never reincarnate in the same generation. To fulfill life, reincarnate as a stone or bird, that this makes so much sense. Life today is far gone from palm wine tapping, bicycle riding, and bushmeat hunting days. There's nothing I can connect whatever passion, life, or drive my grandfather had then to the life my brother is living today. I'm oliviameredithbenji on Reddit. So I have a bandaid on my arm. I was taking a shower, and it was starting to come off, so I just tore it off and threw it into the bathroom trash. I literally saw it hit the sack. I continue my shower and look down, and the band-aid is on the floor of the shower. I go back to look in the sack, and it's not in there. I don't have any other band-aids and haven't had to use a band-aid in years. I'm so befuddled. I'm DumeDoom on Reddit. I've heard stories like this before. Could be the work of trolls or poltergeists. I have a childhood friend and his brother. Their parents are friends with my parents, so we know each other for a long, long time. They told us once that they were home alone watching TV on the second floor and heard their mom yelling at them to come down and help her. When they yelled at her, she did not yell back again, so they got really scared because they were young and alone. Naturally, they did not listen to the voice and ignored it. Hours later, their mom arrived home, so this is how they knew something was lurking in their home. We come to the end of this collection. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when new videos are uploaded, and send your stories to storyscary152@gmail.com.